Hey everybody, so we are going to finish up talking about photosynthesis today, and we are going to look at some alternative types of photosynthesis compared to what we've been discussing so far. So our alternative photosynthesis methods are called C4 photosynthesis and CAM photosynthesis. So this first picture here, this is sugarcane. This is an example of a plant that does the C4 photosynthesis. And then we also have some succulents down here, and these are plants that use the CAM photosynthesis. So C4 photosynthesis is actually going to use a different enzyme to capture that carbon dioxide. It is going to separate physically the process of the capturing of the carbon dioxide and then how it gets fixed into the sugar. And so you're still using the C3 photosynthesis, but that happens in a certain set of cells, and then the carbon is fixed in a different set of cells. So the enzyme here is going to be PEP carboxylase, and this isn't the enzyme that's used specifically for kind of capturing the carbon dioxide. It can capture carbon dioxide even in really, really low concentrations, so this is down to 0 parts per million. It's going to pull in carbon dioxide instead of oxygen, and so by doing that, it actually prevents photorespiration from taking place. This type of photosynthesis is found in about 19 plant families. You're going to see this happen in really hot areas where they have really intense sunlight. So some examples are sugarcane, that was the picture I showed you before, Bermuda grass, and crabgrass. So this is what I'm talking about when I say that you're sort of separating out when the carbon fixation happens. So here the carbon dioxide is being pulled in by the PEP carboxylase, and this is happening in a mesophyll cell. This is going through a cycle. You're using some ATP during this cycle. You are going to essentially convert the PEP carboxylase to pyruvate because you're releasing one carbon dioxide. And so this PEP carboxylase is actually going to be you're pulling the carbon dioxide into a 4-carbon organic acid. So what we were talking about with the C3 photosynthesis is we were looking at 3 carbons being pulled in. Here we're pulling in 1 carbon dioxide, fixing it into a 4-carbon sugar or 4-carbon acid, and then we're releasing one of the carbon dioxides here in a bundle sheath cell, and then pyruvate is going to continue on, and you'll keep pulling in the carbon dioxide in the mesophyll cell. Once the carbon dioxide is brought down to the bundle sheath cell, now you're going to see regular Calvin cycle in your production of sugar, just like you would in the C3 photosynthesis. So you're adding a step here, and you can see over here, I just kind of noted that carbon dioxide again is being incorporated into 4-carbon organic acid. So your carbon fixation is actually separated out in space, and then that organic acid is going to then release the carbon dioxide to the Calvin cycle. So you've added a step here, and you've separated out the carbon fixation from the Calvin cycle, and these are now taking place in 2 different cells. Here is just some kind of a breakdown of what plants will do C3 versus C4 and just sort of some of the characteristics. So C3, we talked about photorespiration is a possibility. In the C4 photosynthesis, you're not going to see photorespiration because the PEP carboxylase is always going to pull in the carbon dioxide. It's not going to pull in the oxygen. C3, let's kind of look at a few of these together. Here you're going to see it can be shade to full sun, a lot of water available because there's going to be high water use, cooler temperatures, slower growing plants, and tend to be cool season crops. When you look at the C4, you've got full sun, only moderate water use, warm temperatures, very fast growing, warm season crops, and so that sort of aligns with some of the examples that I gave you. So like sugarcane grows in a very specific type of climate, and so this C4 photosynthesis tends to occur in those kinds of plants that have, really high higher temperatures, really high growth rates. They tend to grow in warmer regions as opposed to cooler ones. All right, now we're going to look at CAM photosynthesis, and this is going to be found in plants from arid regions. So think like desert plants, so like cacti, succulents, pineapples, some orchids. And so when you're looking at those kinds of regions, those arid regions like deserts, you run the risk of plants losing water if they open their stomata to take in carbon dioxide during the day. And so here we have a separation of carbon fixation in time. And so what this means is that plants that use CAM photosynthesis can keep their stomata closed during the day and then open their stomata at night and take in carbon dioxide at night when the sun isn't out and they're not going to lose a lot of water. So the stomata open at night, plants take in carbon dioxide at night. That carbon dioxide is again stored as a 4-carbon acid. And then during the day, the acid is broken down and the carbon is fixed into the sugar. So with CAM plants, you have tissues that decrease in pH overnight and then rise in pH during the day. This helps avoid the water stress by keeping the stomates closed. And these plants usually have slow growth, so they're having to conserve resources. Think of deserts. Obviously, water is usually lacking. You know that after this that the plants are keeping their stomates closed during the day and then opening them at night, so they're trying to really conserve their resources. So again, you have the carbon dioxide being incorporated into a 4-carbon acid, and then later on, the organic acids release the carbon dioxide to the Calvin cycle. So with C4 photosynthesis, we had a separation in space. So the pulling in of the carbon dioxide and the Calvin cycle were happening in 2 different types of cells. Here we have a separation of time. So the carbon dioxide is getting pulled in at night and it's getting stored in the cell until daytime, and then during the day the carbon dioxide is being brought into the Calvin cycle. So C4 and CAM photosynthesis are ways for the plants to sort of work around certain problems that they have. So C4 photosynthesis, you are able to pull in carbon dioxide even at very low concentrations. And you do that by separating out the 2 cycles. CAM photosynthesis, again, you're separating out the 2 cycles. This time you're doing it based on time. So carbon dioxide is being pulled in at night when the stomata can open without losing a lot of water. And then that carbon dioxide is stored in the cell until daytime when light is available for the light-dependent reactions. And then the carbon dioxide will get shipped over to the Calvin cycle. So we're kind of finishing up. We want to talk about how photosynthesis compares to respiration, and we also want to talk about factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis. So we can compare the rates of photosynthesis and respiration in a cell, and that can give us some pretty valuable information about a plant. So if you are looking at a plant and it is photosynthesizing more than it is going through respiration, so the rate of photosynthesis is higher than the rate of respiration, what that means is that the cell is going to have extra energy for growth and reproduction. If, however, the rates of photosynthesis and the rates of respiration are equal, what that tells us is that the plant is surviving, but it's not going to be growing because it doesn't have extra energy to put towards growth. Then if you see plants where photosynthesis is lower than the rate of respiration, eventually that plant could die because it's not making enough food to support itself. So it's not making enough of these sugars that can then be broken down to release energy for growth and survival. And so a plant that is going through or has higher rates of respiration than photosynthesis could die due to starvation, so they're not going to get the energy they need to survive. So just some comments on photosynthesis and respiration. Respiration happens 24 hours a day. So a plant is alive all day, so it needs energy all day. So respiration is going to happen all day long in order for the plant to break down sugar to release energy for survival. However, photosynthesis is only happening in light. And so this is something that can affect how plants are doing if they happen to be in a place where they're not getting enough light, if they don't make enough food over the summer and they have to survive through the winter. These are all things to keep in mind. So plants overwinter on stored food made when photosynthesis is greater than respiration. So if there is something that happens that decreases the amount of photosynthesis over the summer, then a plant that has to survive over the winter on that stored food is going to be in trouble. So if photosynthesis is less than respiration, the best solution is to just increase the amount of light, because you increase the amount of light a plant gets, you're going to increase the amount of photosynthesis that's taking place. And so that is the first factor that affects photosynthesis. So both the quantity, how much, and the quality of light. Temperature, so whether or not things are too hot or too cold. Keep in mind that you have lots of enzymes that are responsible for these reactions taking place. And so things that when it gets too hot, we can deactivate or denature those enzymes, or if it's too cold, these processes are going to occur slower. The amount of carbon dioxide can limit C3 plants, because if the carbon dioxide is low, plants could be pulling in oxygen, you would have photorespiration taking place. And then minerals. And so minerals that are needed to make all of these things that the plant needs. So you have magnesium, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, like those are all really important minerals. If those are lacking in the environment and the plant is not getting enough, then that can affect photosynthesis. Just overall importance of photosynthesis, obviously food is really important. So food, either directly or indirectly, is going to come from plants. So either you are an herbivore and you are eating only plants, or you are a carnivore that is eating an herbivore that ate plants. So food is always going to come either directly or indirectly from plants, and so no matter what you're eating, you need plants and you need them to be going through photosynthesis. Next, you have oxygen in the air. So photosynthesis is responsible for releasing oxygen into the air, and that's the oxygen that we need to breathe in. So it is very, very important. We need that oxygen so that we can go through cellular respiration and we can release energy from our food. The carbon dioxide balance, this has become even more important over the years. You guys can't turn on the TV or read a newspaper without hearing something about carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. So at the same time that we're increasing the amount of carbon dioxide through all of our human activities, we are also cutting down lots of trees, and we are taking away something that is used to balance the amount of carbon dioxide. And so plant products, life on Earth, like everything is tied to photosynthesis in plants and how they balance out carbon dioxide, provide oxygen for us to breathe, and essentially all of the energy that we need to stay alive. So, in summary, you need to know the main photosynthesis equation. You need to know about the light and dark, or the light-dependent, light-independent reactions. Keep in mind, light-independent reaction, also called Calvin cycle. You need to know about C4 and CAM photosynthesis, and you also need to understand these ratios of photosynthesis to respiration and what it means for a plant to be photosynthesizing the same, more or less, than it is respiring. So your lecture question today kind of ties everything together. I'd like you guys to shoot me a message and explain how the molecular reactions of photosynthesis transform light energy into chemical bond energy. So you should include in your discussion the relationship between chloroplast structure, the light-dependent and the light-independent reactions. So here I'm asking you guys to kind of summarize pretty much this whole chapter and talk to me about, again, photosynthesis, how it's transforming light energy into chemical energy, and you should be talking about the light-dependent and the light-independent reactions. So, all right guys, thanks, and I will see you soon.